Hi, I'm David Siegel. I'm a longevity coach. You can learn more about me at infinitegameoflife.com. This video is about building bone in the gym. How you can build bone if you have osteoporosis or if you don't. Because if you're not building bone, you're losing bone. I want to talk about how we get osteoporosis, what doesn't work, and then the two kinds of exercise that work: impact and peak loading. And I'm starting with a disclaimer because this is about your health and your bones. And my story and your story are different. So you're going to see me do things in this video that you should not do. I'm a professional. I have practiced and trained for years, and I will do things to my bones that you should not do to yours. What you do and don't do is your decision, and you accept the consequences. This is for informational purposes only. You should discuss with your doctor and with a gym professional what program is right for you. All right, with that out of the way, my story is that I was a serious athlete most of my life, running, cycling, and inline skating. And at age 51, I broke my hip ice skating. And then at age 53, while I was running on the street in London, I broke my other hip. And so I have this in my right hip for about 5 years, and then I had it taken out. This is titanium. And the other one is still in my left hip. So I know a lot about osteoporosis because a fractured hip is generally the definition or the diagnosis of osteoporosis. And two fractured hips is a confirmed diagnosis of osteoporosis, unless you are someone jumping motorcycles over canyons or something. So most of us over 50, as we get older, even after our 30s, are losing bone, and we don't know it. The first thing to understand is, what is bone? Bone is comprised of two different materials. One is calcium and the other is collagen. I want to liken it to wood because wood is a good analogy for us. First, let's understand how wood works. Wood is cellulose and lignin. And the cellulose are the long, stretchy fibers. These are carbohydrates, really. They're long and straight, and they are flexible. And what binds them and keeps them into a strong, comprehensive material is lignin. Lignin is like pouring concrete in between. Lignin is a matrix that solidifies all those flexible fibers. And it's necessary for compressive strength because those fibers don't have it. So you get flexibility in this direction laterally, and you get very strong compressive and tensile strength in this direction. And it's the same with bone. And it's the same. They break in the same way. They bend and bend and bend, and they can take a tremendous amount of side stress until they don't. And then they fail catastrophically, and that's what happens to bone. That's why I want you to pay attention, because what happens to you is different than what happens for other people. We all have a limit at which our bones can stretch, and then they break. And we don't know that limit. There's no device you can hook up to tell yourself, exactly what limit you're at, where your limit is. And so the only way to build bone is to exercise below the limit in a safe zone where you are building bone, but you're not stressing too much. And we'll get into that in a minute. A couple things don't work. First, taking drugs does not build bone. Technically, drugs called bisphosphonates do technically build bone. What that means is that they see a little more bone thickening in some small number out of 1,000 patients who are on these drugs, and not much. It's barely statistically significant, but so it isn't really enough to prevent a real fracture. It's just enough to show on the package, or for the doctor's sake, it builds bone. In fact, they'll say that it builds 50% more bone density than without drugs, and that is a lie. That is relative risk versus absolute risk. If you look at the absolute risk from all these trials, you will find out that these drugs do not increase bone density measurably, and they have a problem with the way they restructure bone, because bone is very active tissue. In fact, if you look at your blood level of calcium, it's always 10. I think it's milligrams per deciliter perhaps, but it's always 10. The number, if you go look right now, go to your blood test, take it out, look under calcium in your blood serum calcium, it's going to say 10. The reason is that your system will always keep that number at 10 no matter whether you're losing bone or building bones. If you're taking calcium, it'll take it from the calcium that goes into your bloodstream from what you eat or pills. But if you're not taking calcium, it'll take it right out of the bones to keep your blood always at 10. Your system will take calcium out of your bones all the time. And that process of building and taking away bone at all times means that bones are very adaptable, and they adapt to stress. And the rule bones follow is that they are as strong as they need to be and no stronger. So if you look at bones from prehistoric people who were paddling boats all the time or throwing spears and so forth, we can see very strong buildup in the bones that they used to do hard things. Today's tennis players have about 35% more bone mass and density in their tennis playing arm than in the other arm. Most soccer players have about 15% more bone density in the leg they used to kick with, especially in the shin bones. So it's really designed to add bone where it's needed, and then it will take away bone if it doesn't have a source of calcium and it's not needed to do something specific. And the thing we're always wanting to watch is the bones in our spines and hips, because once an older person breaks a hip, that's something they never get up from. That can be something that ends your life over a period of years after that. So let's think about how we can grow our bones. And I want to start with what doesn't grow bones actively. What doesn't grow bones is walking, yoga, Pilates, cycling, even hiking, because it's just not enough stress to tell your bones. This is not load bearing. This is just normal load. When you're walking, you're not load bearing, right? Your bones are used to bearing your own weight. People who are overweight have thicker bones because they need to support more weight. But your normal body weight isn't going to grow bone. And if you're not growing bone, you're generally, over time as you age, you're losing it. So people who ride bikes, they think, well, yes, my hands are always shaking, my bike is always going up and down, I'm sure I'm stronger. It's not true. People who ride bikes are at risk of fracture, are a fracture risk. And people who run and people who swim and do other sports where they're always, essentially protecting their spine, which is even the case in hiking, you're getting demineralized. And that scenario plays out over and over as we age, gets worse and worse. So we have to build bone to stay strong and not get hurt. Now there are two parts to a fracture. One is that you have to fall over or have some kind of impact, and the other is that your bones have to be brittle or have enough loss of bone density that they go past their limit and they break, right? And in the case of people who, as we get older, people who are former athletes, a lot of people are in have pretty good stability, and we have to work on that. This is one of the big thing I do with my clients, is working as we go into our 60s and 70s, working on the small muscles that give us balance and stability, because we lose muscle same as we lose bone. If you're not building it, you're losing it. So if you lose your big muscles, well, okay, you look a little bit less strong. But if you lose your small muscles, now you have less coordination and less balance. And so you might not be a fracture risk, but you could be a fall risk. A weightlifter would be a good example. A weightlifter might be very strong and have good strong bones, but could be a fall risk because the small muscles that coordinate and balance aren't there. Or you could be pretty balanced, somebody who's always doing yoga and stretching and lots of movements and agility types of things, but they are a fracture risk because they are losing bone. So we need to work on both. And this video is going to be about building bone. One thing I want people to be aware of when they're on a bisphosphonate drug, you are not building bone. You are maybe preventing some bone loss and maybe preventing some loss of bone density, but your bones are getting realigned and they can snap like a piece of spaghetti. They can snap right in half. They don't break like this with strands along the lines of growth. They just break right in half like this, like that. This is called an atypical fracture, and we see them more and more with people who are on bisphosphonate drugs. Plus, you have to take a drug holiday after 5 years. Why? Because they are making your bones brittle, and you are a bigger fracture risk at that point. So, again, I'm not a doctor. I recommend, and for all my clients, do not take any drugs for osteoporosis. Take AlgaeCal, calcium, and take collagen to help give you the raw ingredients, and then the signal gives your hormones the ability to construct more bone, and that signal is what we're going to talk about now. So, and before we go into the gym, I just want to break it down. There are two types of exercise we can do to actually build bone. Well, there's three, so let me go to the third one first. Third one, an interesting one, is a vibration plate. You may have heard of this. There are vibration plates. You may have stood on one before. They go up and down, and they can give some stimulus, and you would think maybe you should sit on it, you should stand on it, you should do a bunch of things on it, and then that will stimulate your bones to grow. And what they found researchers have found over many studies actually, is that it doesn't really grow bone. It's a little disappointing because it would be great to have a magic bullet, just step on the plate a couple times a day. What it really does is, to a small degree, and perhaps a significant degree, is it can reduce bone loss. So if you did nothing else, but you used a vibration plate every day, it would be better than not, but it's not a panacea and it's not going to build your bone for the future. So if you are interested in vibration plates, this is not the video for that. Dr. Doug Lucas has some very good videos. I have some plates on my website in the store that I particularly recommend. You don't want a cheap plate. Any vibration plate under $400 is cheap and isn't going to help you. The better higher end plates can give some results, but again, most of those results are preventing loss rather than building up. Now, peak loading. I want to start with peak loading, and I'm going to show some in the gym. Many people watching this video probably do some amount of weightlifting. They may do some kind of resistance exercise, right? And we have the difference between peak and volume. If you do a lot of volume, it could mean you just do a lot of reps with not much weight, and that has been shown to have pretty much no impact on bone growth. It's not going to stimulate enough bone. Studies show that mostly you need 4 times your body weight to grow, to stimulate your spine to grow. That's a huge amount of weight. That's a tremendous amount of pushing. But even 2 times your body weight, which is a lot, can stimulate some growth. And taken like one joint or one muscle at a time, just doing the hardest possible lift you can will help you grow more bone than if you don't. So it's not about making weights go up and down. It's not about, if anything you can do at say 6, 7, 8, 10 reps, that's not going to build bone. It needs to be heavy enough that you can only do 2 or 3 reps. And that will stimulate bone, but you'll get more bone as you add more weight. And that's why there are some clinics now set up for these kind of extreme, OsteoStrong is one of them, extreme pushing and pulling kinds of machines that will help you really stress your bones. And if you have a lot of money and you like to be pampered and do some things quickly a couple times a week for a whole lot of money, all right, maybe, but you can also do it at home and you can do it in your gym. You do it with as much weight as you can possibly lift with, and I will show that in the gym. The other part is impact. And impact is where we can really grow bone without, having to lift 4 times our body weight. Impact, we can do it safely, and this is a trick because we don't want to get hurt. We'll give the muscles, we'll give your bones the stimulus, the message to grow, to keep telling your bones, hey, I've got to be ready. There's a shock coming in my future, so I've got to keep building. I've got to maintain and build more bone because it looks like I'm getting a lot of shocks. And that goes through mostly through the tendons at the joints and stimulates certain hormones, triggers certain hormones to start laying down more bone in that place. And that is what the rest of this video is going to be about. So let's go down into the gym, and I'm going to talk more about staying in the safe zone and building bone through impact. All right, here we are in the gym, and in this video, I'm going to cover 5 different ways you can actively stimulate bone through movement. And remember, the general principles are you can't do it with body weight alone, you can't do it with running and cycling and hiking, and you can't do it with most weightlifting. But we'll get into this. So the first one is rucking, which is carrying weight on your back. And I have here a 10-pound weight vest that practically anybody can get and wear, 10 pounds. And I'd much rather see you walk 3 miles with a weight vest than 5 miles without, because this is going to start to load your frame. It's not that hard to build leg bone. It's harder to build your hips, spine, and arms, and that's what we're going to spend a lot of time on today. So a 10-pound weight vest is going to be better than nothing, and in fact, if for older people, might be in your 70s or 80s, you might already be a little bit, behind on the curve. Fine, you could start with 5 or 6 pounds. That's no problem. A good weight vest has steel plates or iron plates in it, not sandbags. They take up too much space. So you're looking for a vest that has these kinds of plates, and then they're easy to adjust. And you can then put in as much weight as you like or take out as much weight as you like. Up to 30 pounds, you just want a vest on your shoulders so that all the weight goes down through your spine from the top. Over 35, 40 pounds, you want a weight belt. And remember, I would like everyone to bring your groceries home from the store on your back, in your backpack. 3 times a week, whenever you go shopping, bring it in your backpack. I have a separate video on that. But when I do it, I've usually got 55 to 65 pounds on my back, and I go up the stairs without touching the handrails with all the weight on my back 3 times a week. That's a fantastic way to keep your spine and hips engaged and giving that signal to build bone. All right, so weight vests come in all sizes. This is a light one. The next step up would be a 20-pound that you can just keep modulating from 8 to all the way up to 20 pounds. And you can use it for hiking, for running. Some people use them in the gym. And then you can go up from 20 pounds to 30 pounds with a weight vest. And then after that, you're going to have more of a hip belt. The second modality we have is weight lifting, is load bearing, what we call peak load, because just lifting a bunch of weights up and down and going for volume isn't going to stress your bones. And as I mentioned, on the bench press, you're going to want to start with about your full body weight, which you can maybe do once or twice, and that is about the beginning amount of weight that will start to build bone through your shoulders and arms. And below that, you're building muscle, but you're not building bone. Keep in mind that when you use something like a leg press and you're up against a chair pushing on a leg press, you're also not really building bone. Your legs are not generally the problem. We're going to stress our legs enough in the gym to build bone here. Problem is you're not building bone in your hips and spine when you're in a leg press. So the answer when you're using resistance is free weights, and particularly barbells. Now, I don't have a barbell in my gym, but the barbell is the tool for building bone in the gym through your spine and your hips. You want to be able to do squats this way, and you want to go all the way down. This is going to take a trainer to train you to properly get the bar on your back and to go down as far as you can, and then build those small muscles to balance and go back up. I want to talk about using weights in the gym today and doing some fairly extreme things. You will see me do things that you should not do. I've been doing this for years, and I can lift and jump and do impact moves that you shouldn't do. You should consult with your doctor, get a trainer who knows about building bone, and stay under your fracture threshold in the safe zone whenever you're doing anything. It is a calculated risk, and any risks you take and any results you get are your responsibility. This video is just for informational purposes. Do not do what I show you here. I just want you to learn how it's done, and you decide how and when and with which professionals you want to use to apply these principles. Now, you can use dumbbells, and you could start light. This is 10 pounds each, so this is 20 pounds, and you can do a leg press with dumbbells like this, or a squat, and come back up. But if you can do 5 or 6 of those, it's too light, so you want to go up. So this is 30 pounds. So I have 30 pounds in each hand. This is 60 pounds. And you want to go down slowly, touch, and lead with your upper back. Lead up. You want to keep a straight back doing this. Slowly, and lead up with your head. Lead up. Don't hunch over. And if you can do 4 of those, you're probably building bone. Build up the weight according to your safety threshold. The next thing to do would be deadlifts. And deadlifts can be done any of 3 different ways. And this is not a deadlift tutorial. You can see many good deadlift tutorials. But the point is, to build bone, you want a straight back, you want a good, solid deadlift with as much weight as you can stand. And that means you're going to build up to it. You're not going to go crazy and do too much the first few months. Build up slowly. But at some point, you'll be able to do a deadlift. All the way down, and then up with the shoulders. Up with the shoulders. Keep your back flat. Touch, up with the head. This is not a full tutorial on using resistance to build bone, because you need a lot of weight to do that. It's going to take you a lot of time to build up to where you're really influencing the bone. I like it. I think you want to use a barbell to do it. And you can learn online by watching YouTube videos from Gray Steel Gym. That's a guy named Jonathan who has a PhD in exercise physiology. And I will link below a bunch of his videos from Gray Steel, where he has people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s powerlifting more weight than I can possibly do or will ever do. So next, I'm going to take you through a series of exercises you can do pretty quickly to start to build bone. And it's not powerlifting, it's impact, or what I call shock. So by shocking your bones, you can give the signal through the tendons that your bones have to be ready for more shock. And if you do that repeatedly, And it really doesn't take very much time. I'm going to show you a bunch of exercises. If you do it repeatedly, you will be sending those hormones to your bones to build bone. And you can have quite a bit more bone a year from now than you do today. And as I've shown in another video, you never need a DEXA scan to find out. You always wake up every morning and say to yourself, I've got to build bone today. You can do it 7 days a week. It really doesn't take that much time. So now I want to show you those impact shock exercises. And the first one is just jumping. The goal, again, you're going to get, if you're in the gym, if you're lifting, in general, you're going to get enough stress through your femurs and tibias and your shin bones, but not in your hips and spine. And so we just jump. Now, when you jump, you can land on your toes, and that's actually going to put some good stress on the balls of your feet and the long bones of your toes. So jumping and landing on your toes, jumping as high as you can, is great for building the bones of your feet, but not for building your spine. To do that, you want to land on your heels. So landing on your heels, you don't do it all at once. You work your way there. This is on the toes, and then this is on the heels. And you'll see a jump in your vision. You'll feel it in your head. This is something everyone can do, even if you're 80 years old. What do you do if you're 80 years old? You do this, or you just do heel drops. Okay? You want to stay well under your fracture threshold. So fine, you start with some heel drops. Anyone can do this. Studies have shown that people who are 80 years old and up who do just this are actually building bone. And the last thing you need to do is take any drugs to do this. So we can build that way, and then we can build up. And we're going to land through our heels. Okay, now you can really modulate how much heel, how much forward and back. You can go pretty hard on your heels, right? You can just land straight on your heels with your toes up. Okay? That's fine. That's a pretty good shock. You get a lot of stimulation this way without a lot of time or a lot of stress. You're building muscle other ways. This is just bone building, okay? Then you can jump harder and land it back. And you'll feel it. You'll feel it here, here, and here if you're doing it hard enough. And you have to build up. You don't do what I'm going to show you if you haven't been doing it for months and months. Okay, remember, I've broken both hips. My hips are far stronger than they were 20 years ago. Far stronger. And that's because I'm doing this all the time. Remember also that running and hiking won't do it. So the next thing, obviously, is you just add more force to it. Again, you can jump down and land like a cat. And that's actually going to be helpful for your balls of your feet and your foot bones. And you can add more shock by landing back. More back, okay? I don't think I would actually jump from this high right onto my heels, but about 90%, so that my vision jars when I hit, yes, and I do that all the time. From there, I go to a 2-foot box, and I want to jump up, and I'm going to show two kinds of jumping up. The first kind is jump up like a cat, nice and soft. Quiet and soft. That's not good for your bones at all, really. It's great for your muscles. It's a fantastic thing to do, mostly your hip flexors to getting up. It also helps you learn to jump. So that's an important skill you will build when building muscle. For building bone, you want to land hard and noisy. Noisier. Like that. Remember, don't do this. I've broken both hips. I've got a piece of titanium right here. Don't do until you make your own decision that you're ready, and because you have no idea
when is the last time you do it. Take your own risk and do it very carefully. But I do it pretty hard. And I'll do that until I'm very tired. And that sends a lot of shock through my system. In 45 seconds, you can be building bone. Do that once or twice a day, you're building bone. And in the legs, it's easiest, but you're trying to get that shock to go through. And that's why when you come back down, you want to stand up as much as you can. So you hit as hard as you can without overdoing it on the downstroke. Nice and heel. Like that, without stumbling over. That's a demonstration. It's not for everybody. And you can do that same thing on a small step or on no step, just jumping. Now, something else I do, and I do it all the time, is a standing jump. And my goal is to jump and reach this third bar up here, which is at close to 11 feet, and grab this bar. When I first started doing that, I could just touch that bar. I could reach up and just touch it. And now after 3 months, I've got my hands up here, and I think in another month or so, I'll be able to grab it. And the reason is not that I keep practicing that jump. The reason is that I'm adding load to my jumping routine, and you can too. And this will help this is the next progression in your not too dangerous, because of very slow graduation, up to harder, more impact work. And it's the way you train yourself to jump higher, and that's jumping with weights. Now, there are obviously 2 ways to jump with weights. You can do it softly with lots of absorption, right? Or you can use the weight to stimulate bone growth and keep everything stiff, not too high, and land on the heels. But this will add extra signal to your hips and your spine and your shoulders and even your wrists to grow. And then you want to get more serious about it. And don't catch yourself and land soft. Land pretty hard so your head jerks a little bit. Now, don't do what I'm about to show you. It's not for most people. It might take you a year or so to get where I am. Do not do this. This is 30 pounds in each hand. This is 60 pounds. And the way I build my height, my standing height jump, is by jumping like this. Now I can do it softly, or I could modulate the shock. I'm not going to land straight on my heels. And jumping up against a weight is a fantastic way to build your fast twitch muscles that help you jump high. And you can get very tired doing this, as I will show in another video on building muscle for jumping. And then do not do this. This is 80 pounds, and this is my normal routine. I'm a little tired already. See, my arms are straight. When I hit the bottom, there's a shock. All right, I'm not going to encourage you to do that. But it's something to aim toward over the next year or two. I'm 65. I do it regularly. It's great for my bones. And it's the kind of thing you can train yourself to do. About standing jump. A lot of people are afraid to jump onto or off of a box. The first thing you have to do is have a padded box. Don't jump onto something hard. If you miss, you'll be injured. And the injury is here. The guys who work on jumping high, they wear shin guards. Always use a padded box. You can find boxes in my store on my website. But the best way, one of the best ways that I want people to learn to jump is just jump as high as you possibly can, just from the ground. And by doing it as high as you can, it's kind of hard to come down too hard. You're not using weight. You're not using a platform. You're just jumping as high as you can. And I recommend finding some way to measure how you're doing. Do those exercises with weights and work your way up. I've gotten 2.5 inches in 3 months, and you can do that too. So a standing high jump is one of the best ways, not just to build your fast twitch muscles, but also your bones on the way back down. So that is the legs, the hips, and the spine. I will show this in another video on balance and building muscle and grip. Farmer carries, this is 45 pounds, is a great way to load your spine in ways that are a little off center. You don't want to do this in any extreme extent. But farmer carries on one, this is called a suitcase carry, to one side, again, will help you fill out bone if you do it symmetrically by alternating. Now, the other thing I do all the time is sled work. And sled work also, if it's nice and heavy and difficult, gives you a lot of stress going through your hips like this. Got to be like this kind of angle. And pushing a sled and pulling a sled is also going to load your hips and your spine in ways that will grow bone. Okay. Let's look at your arms and shoulders. Again, you can do bench press, but you need a lot of weight to build bone with a bench press. So instead, you can use impact. Again, I have been doing this for months. Do not do this, what I'm about to show you. Just learn from it and think about it and consult a professional who can help you. Stay under your fracture threshold. You got like 11 bones in your wrist, a bunch of small bones that can break easily. So I'm not going to fall all the way. I just start like this. And then I go up a little bit. And I'm going to try to be pretty straight elbowed, although not 100% straight elbow because it can be a little sore. As soon as you feel any soreness, stop and wait a couple days. It tends to go away, but let's say 95% straight. And the one thing you don't want to do is bend over at the waist while you're going down, so choose your knee elevation and just go straight. Like that. And then as you go up, you can add more compression. You want a bit of a hard impact, and then you'll take the rest of it in your arms. And I do this pretty much every time I'm in the gym, I'll do this. Younger, more adventurous people can go lower down. That's for another day. That's very advanced. And if you're going to start falling farther, you want to use a stack of yoga mats to get used to falling any farther than that. That's enough. This is plenty. Build up to it. Build slowly. The next for your arms and hands is the punching bag. A punching bag is pretty soft. It gives you a lot of cushion, so you don't want gloves. Again, we're just building bone in the upper, through the shoulders, elbows, and wrists. Okay, and you can do it one at a time like this. I don't like doing that because the bag goes all over. I prefer a straight arm approach like this. And you will feel it here. You can feel it all the way down into your hips. You want to get a good, solid impact. Obviously, not the first time. In fact, the first few month or so I did this, I picked up these are 8-pound weights, and I just punched like this, just to get some impact going through my forearms. And it's pretty comfortable this way, and doesn't feel good to do it with a watch on, but it's a good way to get your forearms and wrists engaged. And then you can go to add more shock through your hand bones. And again, it's about shock. It's not about pushing. It's about shock. Not the first week. Take your time. The older you are, the more sedentary you've been. You just do all this at a baby level. No problem. Sure. That works fine. Anyone can do this. Okay? Even someone who's 80 years old can go to a wall and just lean over like this and just push off. That's fine. Okay? Take yourself very slowly until you've got more body weight into it. And the straighter your arms, the more it will go all the way through to your back. If you did that 3 times a week, you'd be growing bone. That's the bone lesson. Upper, trunk, and hips, mostly through jumping, landing on your heels, land on the ball of the feet for the feet bones. And all of this will stimulate so that if you're taking your AlgaeCal Plus, and I have no financial relationship with the company, but it's a great product, and your collagen, that is how you get out of the doctor's office. You forget about the DEXA scans. You don't take any drugs, except if you're a woman, you want to take estrogen hormone replacement therapy. I've got another video on that. Estrogen helps you build bone. Less estrogen makes it much harder. So use hormone replacement therapy to build bone. Everyone should be on HRT unless she can't, unless her doctor says no. If you've had breast cancer, if you're on some particular kinds of medications, you can't. But estrogen is critical for building bone and muscle. And just doing this 3 times a week, how long does it take? 15 minutes? 3 times a week? 5 minutes once a day? This kind of shock therapy is great for building bone, and I also recommend plenty of heavy lifting for building muscle, which I'll show you in a number of other videos. And finally, the fifth way to stimulate bone, and there's hardly any research on this, but I think it's a good thing to do anyway, and that's hanging. This is going to lengthen, just hanging is going to lengthen your spine, improve your grip, and give your bones a bit of a signal that they should be prepared for anything. Is there good science here? No, there isn't. People say it's good for stimulating your bones in some good way. I think it's good for ligaments and the discs in your back to get a bit of a stretch. But it's just something I do because I want to do it to build my grip. But I also think it's part of a reasonably efficient way to stimulate your spine muscles. Not going to do anything for your hips, but it is beneficial overall. It's probably good for your back muscles and general plasticity overall to be able to do other things. So I recommend hanging. I do it once a day. I'm up to about 1 minute and 45 seconds. I recommend my clients start at 30 seconds. And just by doing it every day and doing other grip exercises I'll show you, you can work up to 1 minute and then 1.5 minutes, and that would be fantastic if you can do that. I think you'll like it, I think you'll benefit, and I think it's part of a good bone hygiene. So I hope this has helped, and you can find more osteoporosis videos on my website at infinitegameoflife.com.